There is a specific, predictable moment when most people quit on their financial goals. It is not at the beginning when motivation is high. It is not in the middle when progress feels slow but steady. It happens on a particular day, almost like clockwork, and once you know what that day is, you will never fall into the trap again. That day is day 27, not day 1, not day 100, day 27. Picture a man named Daniel. He decides he is finally going to fix his finances. He cuts his spending, builds a small emergency fund, starts putting money into an index fund every week. For the first 2 weeks, he feels powerful. He checks his balance constantly. He feels like a different person. Then something strange happens. Around the 3rd week, the excitement fades. The account barely moves. The growth is so small, it is almost insulting. He has done everything right, and the number staring back at him barely looks different from where he started. Slowly, a thought creeps in. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe this is too slow. Maybe his money would be better used somewhere else, doing something else today. This is the moment most financial journeys quietly die. Not from a market crash, not from a financial emergency, from boredom and disappointment at the exact point where the results should start to show, but haven't yet. Here is the part nobody explains. This isn't bad luck, it's math. Compound growth is not a straight line. It is a curve that stays almost flat for a long time before it bends upward. In the early stage, the dollar amount of growth is genuinely tiny because there is not yet enough principal or time for compounding to do meaningful work. $1,000 growing at a reasonable annual rate produces only a few dollars of visible movement in the first few weeks. The growth is real, but invisible. This is what separates people who build wealth from people who don't. It is not intelligence, it is not income. It is the ability to keep acting correctly during the period where the results refuse to show up. Think about a different version of Daniel. Same income, same starting amount, same strategy. But this version of Daniel understands the curve before he starts. He knows that the first month, maybe the first several months, are going to feel like nothing is happening. He has already decided in advance that he will not use "it feels slow" as evidence that something is wrong. He has separated the feeling of progress from the existence of progress. This is the hidden insight. Humans are wired to trust what they can feel and see. But the most powerful force in wealth building, compounding, only becomes visible after it has already been working for a long time, invisibly, in the background. The cruelest part is that the early phase, the part that feels the most discouraging, is also the part that matters most, because it determines whether the system survives long enough to reach the part where growth becomes obvious. If you zoom out and look at a typical compound growth chart over 20 or 30 years, the line looks almost flat for the first several years and then curves sharply upward later. That sharp curve at the end did not appear out of nowhere. It exists because the slow, boring, flat-looking part at the beginning was never interrupted. Every time someone pulls their money out during the flat part because it feels pointless, they are not just losing the money, they are losing their position on a curve that requires uninterrupted time to bend. This is also why so many people accidentally sabotage their own wealth without realizing it. They don't quit because the strategy was wrong. They quit because they misread "no visible result yet" as "this isn't working," when those are two completely different things. One is a phase, the other is a verdict. So what is the practical fix here? It is shockingly simple, but most people never apply it because nobody ever framed the problem this clearly. First, before starting any saving or investing plan, decide in advance on a minimum time horizon you will not check your progress against. Not a day you'll quit if things look bad, but a day before which you simply won't judge the strategy at all. For many people, that minimum useful checkpoint is somewhere around 90 days. Not because money magically changes at that point, but because it's long enough to get past the emotionally brutal flat zone where day 27 lives. Second, track inputs, not outcomes, during the early phase. Instead of measuring, how much did my balance grow, measure, did I make my deposit this week? Inputs are within your control and give you a sense of progress that isn't dependent on the unforgiving math of early stage compounding. This single shift, measuring discipline instead of dollars, is often the difference between someone who sticks with a financial plan for years and someone who abandons it within a month. Third, understand that the flat-looking phase is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It is a sign you are early. Every single wealth curve, no matter how impressive it looks years later, has an unimpressive, slow, almost embarrassing beginning. The people who end up wealthy are not the ones who found a way to skip that phase. They are the ones who didn't notice it or didn't care because they had already decided the early flatness was the price of admission, not a red flag. This reframes the entire emotional experience of building wealth. The boring stretch is not the obstacle standing between you and the result. It is the mechanism by which the result is built. There is no version of compounding that skips the flat part. There is only the version where you stay through it, and the version where you don't. So the next time you start something financially disciplined, whether it's a savings habit, an investing plan, or paying down debt aggressively, remember the 27-day mark. Not as a deadline, but as a warning sign of a feeling, not a fact. When the boredom hits and the numbers look unimpressive, that is not new information about whether your plan works. It is simply what the early part of every compound curve looks like, for everyone, every time. The people who eventually look like they got rich quickly almost never did. They just survived the part where it looked like nothing was happening for long enough that it stopped being invisible.